Okay, so we're here in Autodesk Inventor 2018, and we're going to go ahead and create a new part. So we're going to do our drop down and part. We're going to be focusing on kind of advanced 2D drawing in this case. So we're going to go ahead, first we're going to save it off. We're going to save as, and we're going to save it as 2D tools. And we're going to go ahead and then start a 2D sketch. Okay, any plane you want. And so we're going to go ahead and just concentrate on this panel right here. Move, copy, rotate, trim, extend, split, scale, stretch, and offset. Okay. So, and I'm going to go through them kind of quick. They all share kind of a common logic. So, and I'm not going to dimension, even though I know that's dangerous. Okay. That's why I'm doing this kind of further down the road, because you always dimension, but for this, we're just, you know, it's just shapes. We're just demonstrating the tools. So, okay, we're going to make a rectangle. To move, you basically click the move tool. You can drag to select. So click, drag to select everything you want to move. Okay. Then you choose a base point. So you do this other mouse, right? Okay. You click on a point. You move the mouse over. Everything that you've selected moves. And then you click again. Okay. The reason why you do this, the reason why you'd use the move tool is that sometimes you have a complex shape, and if you try to just grab one line, just that line will move, and you'll basically deform the shape that you spent so much time drawing. By using the move tool, you can highlight everything all at once and move it as one unit without affecting the shape. Also, you'll notice there's a common theme that goes through all of these controls, and that is that every time you have to select more than one thing, there are these red arrows, okay? The red arrows denote that you have to turn all those arrows white in order to use the tool, okay? So in this case, for move, we have to select first. Notice that the red arrow next to select is going to turn white. It just did. Okay, now we select base point. Okay, once we click the base point, that turns white, right? And we're ready to use the tool. So we click over and move. Okay, then we click done to get out of the tool. The next one is copy. It works exactly the same way. Click copy. There are two red arrows here. We're going to click and drag to select everything we want. We're going to choose a base point, click, and then basically we can just click, 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 and we're creating copies of whatever we are doing. Okay? All right. And when you're finished, go ahead and right-click cancel, or you can also click done. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is rotate. So rotate, also very similar interface here. We're going to select everything we want to rotate. We're going to choose select for a center point. Okay. It'll ask you if you wanted to remove constraints. Generally the answer is yes. Okay, you can freehand rotate. Notice that you kind of have this lever action. By pulling the lever further out, obviously you can get finer control. Also, but for the finest control, basically you just want to put in a number. So for example, 90 degrees and done. Okay, so that's rotate. Okay, the next one we're going to do here is trim. Okay, trim is for when you want to create a complex shape. Okay, a lot of times instead of creating instead of like free drawing lines or using the spline tool or something like that, most things that we want to draw are actually, you can actually think of them as composite shapes made up of many basic shapes. So basically we could do circles and rectangles and basically make up shapes that are that would be more difficult to draw. So if you can imagine, if we wanted to make a very complex outline here, it would be easier to create a bunch of basic shapes overlapping, okay, and then go through and notice that I clicked on the trim tool, and then basically you can just delete any line from its between two intersections, basically. So it turns in, you can see it highlighting, and then you just click, and you can go through and you can essentially remove interior parts. It just is very useful, right? So that's the trim tool. So any part of a line you want to move, you want to remove, basically you just draw another line intersecting it, and that's where you can remove from. Okay, so that's a good example right there. Okay, so that's a very complex shape. It would be very difficult to draw that, but by using a composite shape in the trim tool, you can do that. Okay, extend is another good one. So extend, so if we click the extend tool, we can essentially take any line segment, and notice when I click into the extend tool and I highlight a line, notice we see that black preview there. So essentially what I can do is I can click on that on the line then, and it extends over to the next line. I can do it on arcs like that, so I can go ahead and basically extend the circle back in, right? Okay, the other thing that we can do, that's extend. Okay, the next thing we can do is split. So if we have a circle and we draw a line across, essentially that is still, this circle is still its own thing, right? Okay, so it hasn't really been cut by the line. It's like the line is on its own layer or something, right? So, but what we can do is we can do a split, and essentially what we can do is we can split the circle's line in at that intersection. All right, and then essentially once we get out of the tool, we could go ahead and, oh, it didn't move. But we can go ahead and delete portions of that line, okay, because it's essentially a, two parts of an object there, right? Use a trim tool, trim these off, and we have kind of a half circle there. Okay. The next one we're going to take a look at is scale. Scale works exactly like as you would imagine. So basically we have this, if we have a rectangle here, let's say, it's an inch by an inch, that would make it probably a square. Okay. So let's say we have this square and we want to scale it. So we're going to click scale. We want to select everything that we're going to scale, in this case the whole square. Choose a base point, which is right here. And then basically we're going to go ahead and scale it just like this. Looks like I got an extra line there, which is fine. Okay. We can also choose a factor of like 2, for example, and we get a square that is 2 inches by 2 inches. Okay. All right. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is stretch. Stretch is a little bit confusing to me, to be honest with you. Usually if you choose 2 lines which are adjacent, then choose a base point in between, essentially you can go ahead and move this out, right? So you can stretch that, and basically you're just moving the point at which they intersect, and you can stretch stretch out that shape. The last one that we're going to take a look at here is offset. Offset is very useful, okay? So let's take a look at where you might use offset. Let's say that you had a let's say that you just had a kind of a complex shape, and we already have one, right? So let's go ahead and make like a kind of another complex shape here. Okay, so let's say we have a complex shape. And what we want to do is we want to create a second shape of the exact same, we want to just create a similar shape, right? So same shape, different size, we'd use offset. So we basically would offset, we choose the shape, click, move the mouse out, and then click again. And basically it creates the same shape just with an amount of distance between the two, okay, if you can imagine. All right, so that is offset. Okay, so those are kind of our set of drawing tools there. We can do a lot with them. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to finish sketch, and that is our first part for 2D drawing. Okay, so let's go ahead and create another part, and we're going to take a look at 2D constraints. Okay, so we're going to create another part, start sketch. Okay. So 2D constraints we're going to look at are right here. And what it is that constraints help in a lot of different ways. One, they create shapes that are predictable to us, like rectangles and triangles. They also allow us to work in conjunction with dimensioning. Okay, so let's say so we're going to go through them, and then we're going to look at a little bit like how we could use them for dimensioning. So the first ones we're going to look at are in this row right here. They have to do with lines, right? So let's say we have 2 lines. Okay, there's one line, and then there's another line. Okay, notice I'm purposefully not making it horizontal or vertical right here. Okay, because if I just make it horizontal, notice the gray box next to my cursor there. There it is. There it is. There it is. So basically what Inventor is telling me is that that line is vertical right there. Okay, so it's trying to put on a vertical constraint automatically because that's what it thinks I want, right? So if you're not trying to do that, you have to be kind of careful. You have to go a little bit off vertical, right? Okay, so there's our other line, and what we're going to do is we're going to make these two lines parallel. So I click the parallel constraint, click the first line, click the second line, and now they are parallel, right? Okay, now let's say that I want them parallel, and notice that when I click off the constraint, it disappears, right? Okay. If I want to show all constraints, I can right-click and click Show All Constraints, and notice they come back up. It can get very confusing visually if you have all the constraints showing. So we right-click in an empty area, click Hide All Constraints again. Okay, so these two lines are parallel. Notice if I select them, it'll show the constraint. And then let's say that we want to make another line, and this time we want to make it perpendicular. Okay. So we click perpendicular, click one line, click the other line, and notice that now these two lines are perpendicular, okay? And no matter where I move it, notice it stays perpendicular. There's no way for me to make it not perpendicular. Even if I move the point, the line is going to stay perpendicular. Same thing here. If I move this line, there's no way for me to move it so that it's not perpendicular to the other line, okay? All right, because it's constrained. All right, the next thing we're going to do here is we can put a horizontal constraint. So if we put a horizontal constraint on this line, notice that it is now constrained to be horizontal, and that affects the other two lines that are constrained to be associated with it, right? Okay, we can do a third line just to demonstrate. Right-click OK, and we can make this line vertical. Okay. All right, so those are the constraints that we've added right here. So parallel, perpendicular, horizontal, and vertical, right? Okay, the next ones are a little bit different. So they're kind of things that occupy the same point or line, right? So if we have two lines, let's say we have two lines right here, and we want to make them occupy, we want the ends to be coincident. Okay, so this acts on a point, so we select 2 points, first point, second point, and basically now those points share a common point in space. So the points that define the line segments now share a common point in space, regardless of where it's moved. So I can move them all around, and no matter what, that point will remain the same. It will remain connected, right? When you're drawing, this is automatically done. When you see that green dot, when you're drawing the two lines connect, that's what's happening. It's being made coincident. Okay, next one. So we got line, and we have another line. Okay, and this time we're going to go ahead and make them collinear. Okay, now, so basically this is two line segments now occupying the same line. So if I click on one, click on the other, now they're collinear. Okay, and you see that now they're occupying the same line. Okay, we're up to concentric. So this affects circles, obviously. So we're going to go one circle and another circle. And if we go ahead and we click concentric and we click one circle, then another circle, now those two circles' center points are locked on each other. Okay, concentric. All right, we have two more to go. And the next one is going to be equal. Okay, so we can click on two things. And this works across a lot of different shapes. So we can have two lines, okay, that are equal. So we click the equal constraint and click two things. There we go. Now they're both equal. Notice that, so if we have a short line, right, and we have a long line, okay, and notice that if I click one first, and you have to click one first, obviously. So if we click the short one first and then the long one, notice that it matches the second one I click. So the next one we're going to do here is tangent. Thank you. Okay, the next one we're going to do here is tangent. And we're going to go ahead and make a line. Oops, that's a circle. We're going to make a line, and we're going to use a tangent constraint. And basically, we're going to go click the line, click the circle, and now the line and the circle and tangent. Notice that it doesn't actually touch the line, though. Okay, so if I can move this around, see that both shapes will adjust to satisfy that constraint no matter where we move them. Okay. All right. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at two-dimensional patterns. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save this off as 2D constraints and click save. All right, so the last one we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at 2D constraints. That will kind of round out our 2D drawing tools. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make a new part file. Okay, so we do our drop-down menu part. And this time what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to make we're going to try to make a hairbrush, okay? And it's kind of a classic exercise. So if you can imagine, a hairbrush requires that you make a lot of identical objects, right? So the bristles on a hairbrush are kind of tough to model because they have to be kind of identical and there has to be lots of them, right? All right, so that's what we're going to do. So basically, we're going to use in a 2D drawing, we're going to create a 2D drawing, and we're going to be using the rectangular, circular, and mirror pattern tools for 2 dimensions, right? We have similar tools in the 3 dimensions as well, but the 2-dimension is what we're going to focus on today. All right, we're going to go ahead and we already started a 2D sketch. So the first one we're going to use is mirror. So we're going to go ahead and take and kind of do the top of the brush here. And then we're going to do the bottom of the brush, okay, like the handle. Click OK. And then we're going to go ahead and trim twice, and right click OK. We're going to adjust a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and use something we kind of haven't used before, which is Fillet. Okay, so you can try out the Fillet tool if you haven't before. That just kind of rounds off edges. Okay, so we're kind of round off those edges there. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mirror. So if you click on mirror, we're going to select all the lines that we want to mirror. All right, and I can do this just by dragging, and then click, drag, and I can also click. Now you have to leave one line available to mirror. Now this line doesn't have to be part of the actual shape you're mirroring. It can be off somewhere else. So then we're going to go ahead and select the mirror line. Click apply, and what we get is this mirrored effect, right? So basically it just flips over. It's a reflection, right? So it reflects over the line. We're going to click done. We're going to click finish sketch. And then we're going to go ahead and extrude. So we're going to extrude this. We're going to extrude up. You know what? You know what I didn't do? I did not dimension. We're going to go back into dimension. I got used to not dimensioning. See how easy that is? Easy. Easy to forget to dimension. Okay, so right now I made a 1.27 inch hairbrush. And there you go. You can imagine that does not look like a hairbrush. Okay, so interestingly enough, this is a great lesson, right? So basically what I've got here is I made this complex shape. I start to dimension. It deforms not in the way that I wanted it to deform, right? Okay, so essentially let's see how we're going to fix this. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is, let's say I try to dimension this, right? So I got, the whole thing is 6 inches, so I want the handle to be like 4 inches. Okay, great. That's not good either. I got to be honest with you, this is where a bit of art comes in. So there we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. But now the width is probably wrong. So let's take a look. Notice how the mirroring continues as well. So, okay, so we're going to go here, and we're going to make it, let's make it 1 inch. Okay. And then down here, let's go ahead and do this one. And let's make that 0.25 inches. Okay, that will do. All right, there we go. Finish sketch. Kind of classic old-timey hairbrush there. So we're going to extrude then, and we're going to extrude, let's just make it thin, make it 0.25. Okay, and we haven't used this before, but Fillet is very useful here as well. And notice that it gives you kind of a preview. it's not letting me select there. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's say we use the fillet there, and we're going to go ahead and click apply. Okay, so now we have kind of this curved shape there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, so we've used the mirror tool, right? We've used the mirror pattern. Now we're going to go ahead and add a sketch. Okay, so on the first side here, we're going to start to make bristles. So we're going to go ahead and add one bristle, all right? And it's going to be fairly small, right? So we're going to click, and we're going to pull out. We're going to go 0.1 inch. I'm not sure where that went. All right. It's kind of surprising that it's like disappearing on me. All right, we're going to leave that as is for now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move it up where we kind of want the corner of our pattern to start. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, the easiest way to do this is what's called project geometry, okay? And I haven't really talked about it yet, but we want to go ahead. Project geometry just brings lines from other things in our model into a sketch. Okay, so we project geometry. You can also just draw a line. You can draw a horizontal line, a vertical line. That's fine too. But to project geometry is really, really useful. So we're going to go ahead and click the rectangular pattern. The first thing we're going to do is select the geometry we want to repeat. So notice that's geometry. These red arrows kind of show you the way here. Okay, so we're going to select a circle, very small circle. Then we're going to select direction 1. Okay, that's our horizontal. Notice we get one dot right away right here. We actually want to switch directions. We want to reduce the distance between them. Okay, so like 0.2. Okay, I'm even going to go 0.1. All right, then we want to increase the number of them, right? So we want like 20 of them. Okay, so that's direction 1. It gives us like a row of them across there. Direction 2 is going to go down, okay? In this case, we want to go 0.1 again, okay? And we want, let's say we want 25 rows. Okay, that worked out nicely. Usually, I got to be honest, that was just a guess. It usually doesn't work out that nicely, but it did work out that time. We're going to go ahead and click OK. All right, now we're going to go ahead and click Finish Sketch. So we have our pattern, right? Now, if we wanted to edit the pattern, like say we got the wrong number, you just right-click on one of them and click Edit Pattern. You can also suppress them. So basically, we can go in and you can select some of them, right-click, and you can go Suppress Elements. So let's say we wanted to suppress some of the elements out of the pattern. We could do that. We're going to go ahead and click Finish Sketch. Then we're going to go ahead and extrude. So we click Extrude. And this process is going to take a while. So once Inventor has to start kind of chugging through lots of repetitive objects, it might slow down a little bit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is click Profile. We're going to click and drag across all of the objects, select them all. And notice it's going to take just a second. Then you're going to double check that it's correct. Okay, so it's coming out in the right direction, right? I'm going to go ahead and make them 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. All right, so that's our first brush. You know, it's a start. It's a start on a hairbrush, okay? This is not, you know, probably ready for the store yet, but it's a start. Okay, the second thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click 2D Sketch on the back, okay? You know, it's going to be a pretty creative hairbrush here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make one point right in the middle, okay? So we need a point that's going to act as the axis for our circular pattern. Okay, and then we're going to make, once again, we're going to make one object that we're going to repeat. Okay, I went ahead and made it quite small. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to click the circular pattern. First, we're going to select the geometry, right? So we're going to select the circle that we want to repeat. Next, we're going to select the point that is our axis. And notice that we get a preview right away, okay? In this case, I'm going to make lots of them because I'm only making one circle in my example here. We're going to click OK. Obviously, we need multiple circles if we were going to really make a hairbrush there. We're going to click Finish Sketch, and we're going to click Extrude again. We're going to select everything in the sketch, and we get kind of the same effect here. We're going to go ahead and click OK. All right, so that's a start on, you know, it obviously needs some fine tuning, and yours, if you try this, will be better. But that is an introduction to using some of the more advanced 2D drawing tools. So good luck.